Time to get a review of Slauson Malone. Quiet Farewell, 2016 to 2018. Again, a very
quiet farewell. Get the fuck out of here.
Nope. I'm doing a very long farewell like this. And very loud, unlike this.
You bitch.
Slauson Malone is a New York City jazz, hip-hop, and ambient producer, mostly known before this new release for producing a few tracks for Pro Era's Nick Caution. This new album, A Quiet Farewell 2016-2018, is a glitchy and filthy mix of ambient music and abstract hip-hop. It's received high praise from likes of Needle Drop and Pitchfork, but most importantly, Injury Reserve's Richie with a T, Richie with a T, I don't want to say of a T. Richie with a T, who stated this is one of his favorite albums of the year so far. And surprisingly enough, Slauson Malone has a few dates with Injury Reserve on their latest tour. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, this kind of came out of nowhere. Slauson was nowhere on my radar. I just heard a lot of good praise for it, so I was really excited. And Richie with the T, his musical recommendations haven't proved me wrong yet. The last Z Loopers album was really good. And it got Danny Brown to retweet us, so that's good enough.
Look, if you can get Danny Brown to retweet you, fuck it. Do it again. Maybe we'll get another one.
So this entire album, it's very like loose project. It doesn't really have a finite shape, and it's like weird mix of almost like pseudo plunderphonics and kind of like you can mix plunderphonics with kind of like what are they Arm & Hammer. It has that like grittiness to it. Just feels really like scratchy. Has that like dustiness. Like I'm like looking at an old photo, and in order to look at it, I have to kind of like blow the dust off.
Yeah.
It has this like a lot of deep bass lines that have kind of like ring your ears a bit. A lot of scratchy sampling moments across this entire thing. The features range from sounding like they're actually part of a sample that is being presented to
like actually giving like performance,
an actual verse, or just like a hook that's repeated. This thing's very unorthodox, kind of offbeat. It just feels kind of just like not finite. We're just kind of going through these different sound locations for something that's it sounds or seems like more of a kind of like a bunch of demos, at least in the when you add like a date like 2016 2018, it kind of not like demos but like just loose ideas or concepts, not really going through a narrative theme. It flows tremendously well. I think the only thing I can dip on this is it's just a little bit too long for a project like this.
I like the length it's at. I think
because like I don't think it's like all of the tracks. I think it's like the last three just don't hit me as well as the beginning, and I think it kind of runs on all it really has to say for me personally. Not that I just think this is a tremendously produced just a mix of just mess. Which is really nice.
It's like a mixture of like a lot of things, and if you like kind of like pull out like some of the samples and like what they sound like, you got a lot of like world music and like old jazz and like old like gospel and blues and soul sounds. It's just kind of just like great mixture of like almost like an entire like cultural history of like an area.
Yeah.
Like if you were to take like I don't know, maybe like New Orleans and like go for like their entire like cultural like sound like history, it's like kind of collected into this one flowing, formless, beautiful like album where it just kind of touches on all these themes, just kind of keeps flowing and moving. And
for something that is like produced something with that has like a range of features that range from like very more like unnoteworthy to finite. I think it actually manages that realm really well, because like some records they will try to do loose features or they'll try to do finite features or like a mix of them, and it just comes off as like some of them just don't.
Like Flying
Lotus was a great example of that, because some of them were just not present and some of them were, and it's just a mix. This works really well because I don't really have any problems with the features, because some of them are production features, some of them are physical features, like performance features, and I think it really blends that line really well where you don't know what to really expect, and I think a lot of this album is very surprising, and it works really well in that regard because you don't know what really is around the corner, because it could just be this glitchy mess of noise or just this heavy thick bass line rattling you to your bone, or this joyous sample that just brings nothing but joy to you. It's if you like lo-fi hip-hop, but like you want to have intelligent lo-fi hip-hop, not just something to chill or study to, but something that makes you think.
Yeah.
Definitely give this a listen if you like abstract hip hop. As I mentioned, Arm and Hammer. I think a lot of their production kind of comes around.
It's like some like experimental type of music.
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic mix.
It's a great album. It's an album that I could never like listen to outside of like the album setup.
Yeah.
Like none of these would like could work on their own. They are all like a piece of the cohesive whole, and they have to be there.
Yeah.
As they are.
Yeah, it's a very nostalgic release and very like mournful in that kind of like atmosphere. I guess like that kind of like
there's a lot of somberness.
Somberness, that's a good word. That's what I was kind of looking for. Somberness across this entire release. A very somber.
Which I think like I looked into like the history. He was basing it off like an old, like movie. Ah, fuck, what was it? It was like, Sweetback's like summer something like that.
Yeah.
And like the final line is something about like how like they burnt my mom and they'll burn my papa, but they won't burn me.
Yeah.
It's like this kind of final act of defiance against the system that's trying to fuck you over.
Yeah, it's a very somber collage of ideas being presented across this entire thing in a bunch of different styles, from ambient, experimental hip hop, abstract hip hop, jazz being thrown together in a really interesting way. Keep in mind that our scores are futile, meaningless. Right now, at this current moment, I'm feeling like an 8. I really enjoy it.
9.
9?
I'll do a 9.
Yeah, Trevor listened to a bit of this with me the other day, and he seemed to really enjoy it. So we're definitely going to be talking about this next week.